Hello and welcome to this training video for the Sharp BigPad PNLC range of interactive touchscreens. Today we're going to be going through getting started, inputs and connectivity, built-in dry whiteboard, Windows usage, wireless casting and other basic functions. We're going to start by powering up the screen, and we do that using the power up button on the front panel. The screen will then take approximately 5 to 10 seconds to boot up from standby. If we look at the other buttons on the front of the panel, we have a home button which will take us back to the home screen. We have a freeze button which will allow us to freeze presentations and move along, and we have a volume up and down button. So let's have a look at Windows usage. If we go onto our laptop display, we can then use our finger for touch. So we can move around there. Press and hold would be a right mouse click where we can change our icons, or we can access programs and files down the bottom of the screen, along with the ability to bring in a pop-up keyboard. We have numerous inputs on the PNLC range of screens. These include HDMI inputs around the back, a HDMI input at the front, DisplayPort, USB-C and VGA. And we can tell which port is active as it's highlighted in blue there for the active port. If we're using Microsoft Word, we can open up a document. We can use pinch and zoom to make the document larger or smaller, and we can use Microsoft annotation tools to move the document up and down or draw over the top of it. So we can now make our amendments from there. We can bring a highlighter in and highlight any errors from there, or we can actually bring in the pop-up keyboard and change any wordings that we need to from there. When we get to the end of the document and we exit it, it will ask us if we want to save it and override it or save it as an alternative version. And that's it. If we look at PowerPoint, we can use the pen or our finger to activate it. If we start the presentation from there, if we swipe right to left, we will go forwards. If we swipe left to right, we will go backwards. We can then use the pen or our finger to activate Windows inking tools, where we can then annotate over the top of our slide. And when we advance the slides and come back, our annotations are still there. You can also change the colour and go to the next slide from there, where we can change the colour again to CO2 will give us H2O as our conclusion from there. When we exit the presentation, it will ask us whether we want to keep or discard our annotations and inkings over the top of that. If we keep them, the annotations are there. If we discard, we're back to a blank presentation. The PNLC screen has a number of built-in apps. These include a whiteboard, a web browser, a file manager for storage of internal documents and images, wireless sharing, a timer, a calculator, and a voting kit. If we look at the built-in dry whiteboard, we utilise the pens. The pens are double-ended, a thin end and a larger end. The thin end is writing in blue and the larger end is writing in red. But we can configure that. If we tap this button here, we can change the thin end to red and we can change the larger end to blue. We also have the ability to bring in other features. We can use arrows and we can use shapes. If we go to the next button, we can then bring in images from the internal storage or a USB device. If we go to pictures, and we can bring in the picture of a pyramid. Now the screens are multi-touch, so we can pinch and zoom that down to size, and then we can use some other onboard tools. We can use a protractor where we can measure the angle of the pyramid, and we can bring in a ruler where we can measure the width of the pyramid from there. Once we've finished, we can go to the menu and do an arrangement of things with it. We can save it as a named file, we can print to a network printer, or we can share it live during the lesson. The share button will generate a QR code which can then be captured onto any mobile device for any of the participants in the lesson. We can wirelessly cast to the screen using eShare. eShare needs to be downloaded onto the connecting device. That can be iOS, Windows or Android. We simply download onto the device from the screen, hit the connect button, and we're sharing content. From there, we can activate touch and we can use the screens as we would normally.